Hello there, my name is Lamin Jai and this is News Review. Thank you for being there. Coming up for you on the show today. So the voter registration exercise has commenced. Our reporters were out to find out how the activity or the exercise is unfolding. Also, UDP today held a press conference. The party spoke through leader Usain Dabo on the nation's security situation there. Before all of that, let's see what the newspapers say today. We'll begin with the Standard. Their lead story, ICC prosecutor says Jammeh can now be tried. That's Fatou Bensouda there. TRRC to pay reparations by 30th of June. IEC warns parties against interference in registration. GDC threatens to sue IEC over Mankamankunda incident. German clinic shuts down. Let's see the stories quickly. The heat is ongoing. The heat is on former President Yahya Jammeh. Last Friday, TRRC lead counsel Esa Fall made a compelling case before the Gambian people for him to be tried for crimes against humanity. The following day, the incoming chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, tweeted that justice must happen in the Gambia in reference to Mr. Fall's call. ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda, herself a Gambian, had earlier stated that the court could not investigate or prosecute Jammeh because the scope and degree of the crimes he was accused of did not meet the gravity threshold for the ICC to intervene. But in an interview with Senegalese state broadcaster RTS aired yesterday, Mrs. Bensouda said given what was unearthed by the TRRC at the end of its public hearings last week, accusations against Jammeh indeed meet the crimes against humanity threshold and that the former Gambian president could now be investigated and tried. That's the development there from the ICC prosecutor. Their TRC to pay reparations by 30th of June. As the countdown begins to the end of its mandate, the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission has announced it intends to start paying monetary reparations to people recognized by it as victims of human rights violations before the end of this month. IEC warns parties against interference in voter registration. The Independent Electoral Commission has warned that interference by political party agents in the registration process for a voter's card would not be tolerated. GDC is also threatening to sue IEC over Mankamankunda incident. The GDC NAM, that's the National Assembly member for Jimara, Alhaji Sow, has accused the IEC of registering non-Gambians and minors in Mankamankunda. He said his party is closely monitoring events in the president's home village and will take the IEC to court immediately after the registration process is completed for redress. Also, ASB Clinic, commonly called German Clinic, will shut down all operations for 4 months effective 5th June. The closure is necessitated, according to the Standard there, by logistical constraints. Let's see the Point newspaper. Today we don't have Foria, it's the Point instead. No one can influence us to do otherwise. That's the IEC chairman speaking strongly. Their member of slave class in Garawal sues governor 2 others. 4 suspects arrested with half-ton of cannabis. I think this was reported there yesterday by the Foria newspaper. Fisheries Department to punish vessel infringers. So their lead story there is saying the chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission, Ali Mumanjai, says no one can either derail the commission or influence them to do otherwise ahead of the December polls. The IC boss made this statement at a press conference at the election house ahead of the national voter registration. Well, that exercise has since started. We'll leave it at that for the newspapers. We'll be right back. Thank you very much and welcome back. So Gambians have been flocking to various registration centers across the country to register ahead of the December presidential showdown. Usman Jata tells us more.
The registration exercise is expected to last for 1.5 months. However, with less than a week since the start of the registration exercise, an upbeat atmosphere is notable at various registration centers within the Kanifing Municipality Prefecture.
I need changes. Yeah, because we all see what is going on. Because first things, first, security from Nekane is not yet tight. It's not tight at all. Understand? So soon backendal from Nekane from Meniko Mungsi Hortigor. Understand? Because like Moy Lolo da before it was so hard, they could be nehotondo nyawa why security was tight. Understand? Moy Lolo. So we need changes. I feel big government from Neka everything more here. You understand? Even horam bunga gen bugenon daw si massive business bopam everything mungi change so moy lol ta
pour gena because we need changes yeah yaka burela amon si Adama Barrow why I feel na I'm not disappointed buraya yeah so I feel now we need changes Adama Barrow am pour gena kenen ñew do ne ko try na way ñuko wor ay igul ñuko wor so li moy problème bi ay volto ñuko wor so ñu holun future bi te ñun Gambia la ñoo sét volto yi dañ leen fi wara génné dirmo yi janahe dirmo yi na gaay génna abal ñu fi so li motax ma génna si o suma raka suma yaay ñim pour ci kër te inshallah rabbi December 4 dina génné Adama Barrow
me at nanta fintita bi na nyanto lam pour ka finti kanto banku dingola monte anu ngala ko banku din cendo la monte banku din cendo e nyanta lole la banku e kende ke fala se so kayrola anu ngala ko nyim president ay hino sotole ay balafa soto anu ngalo ka banko samba nyame abete ya tale wala atinna nyumuna nyanto to pour nga finti na president ka first from start and state house.
In their part, polling agents and registration officers describe the voter registration turnout of people as satisfactory.
Alhamdulillah, this time, alhamdulillah. Everything is going normal. The youths yangi over gena, magi dinga gis ko xamantene munuta dosa dañ ko tiyé sa wayam gena. This year mom, magi ak youths decide nañ torop gena ci nañ ak doole waaw.
The process is going fine. We don't have any problem here. The only problem is the crowd. You know, anywhere when they meet, it's a problem. That's the only problem we have. Everything is going fine.
Alhamdulillah, Cuba is okay because you see, bukan na yung ono si bi dekabi, gaya yung na fi dibis hapa 7, you see na fi nyaka feka balama feka Mary, masada mati mana nyene na damulen school, nyene mo hey, legi fi nyeka ne mo, hada nye register be na yon. So you see ange gena definitely, fi amu fi ben problem. Yeah.
Eligible voters are required to tender a birth certificate, ID card, a passport, or an attestation from an alcalo in order to be registered. However, some electorates could not register immediately due to the fact that they had photocopied versions of their documents. In order to get registered, one is required to tender their original documents.
Come December 4th, Gambians are expected to vote their next leader into office by voting for their respective political candidates, with 18 political parties already registered at the IEC. Many people predict that the 2021 presidential election is going to be a tight one. However, with the country already experiencing high crime rates and a sudden growth in the prices of basic commodities across the length and breadth of the Gambia, now any political party that wants to win the race to the State House must gain the trust of the people by sticking to the interests of Gambians. Reporting for the Fatu Network News Review, Usman Jata.
And welcome back. So the United Democratic Party today held a press conference where their leader, Usainu Darboe, spoke. His speech today addressed centered largely on national security matters. Mati Senghor was there and she came through with this report, but I just warn you that the report is a little long.
Surrounded by his top aides, UDP leader Darboe addressed reporters today on security situation of the country. His view of the situation is the same as everyone else's.
The UDP, being one of the major political parties in the country, cannot go on being silent when major events are taking place in the country. Not only should we be heard, but we should also be heard to be giving or providing or suggesting solutions to these problems. Therefore, today we intend to address the issue of security, which is topical, an issue that is engaging the minds of everyone in this country. And indeed, the executive has come out with a statement on the state of the nation's security. There are other issues that may have some relevance or some bearing on the security of the nation, and some of these things are, we expect would be matters that would happen in the future, but at least it is proper that we mention them in this press briefing so that we can be alive to it when it comes up, so that our handling of the situation will not put the security of this country in jeopardy. Because crime and criminals have been in this country for as long as the Gambia has existed. It is over centuries, even before colonial times. Crimes were committed in the country, and with the advent of colonial rule, measures were taken to address crimes in the country, and this led, of course, to the promulgation of the criminal code, which prescribes conducts that have been deemed to be socially unacceptable and criminalizing them. But never in the history of this country has the rate of crime been so high as in the last 12 months. We have been witnessing burglary, armed robbery, daylight armed robbery, heinous murders, gruesome and heinous murders, rapes, and other crimes of violence being committed in this country. And these have direct bearing on the security of the state. It has a direct bearing on our personal safety, our personal security. Offenses like armed robbery, certainly the reports that we have had show that the armed robbers go well armed, prepared to take the lives of their victims. And this is a state of affairs that cannot be allowed to continue.
Mr. Dabo insists police stations are not well equipped and government should take necessary measures to provide the police with the resources they require and not depend on donations from philanthropists.
We have agencies that are designated that are designated to handle this situation, to ensure that the rate of crime is curbed in the country. But are they prepared for it? Are they equipped for it? Let me register my appreciation to the Inspector General of Police and his team, the anti-crime unit, which has as their mantra zero crime. Want to congratulate them. But they could have done better. They would have done better if they are properly equipped. All these police stations in this country do not have the required vehicular the vehicular opportunity to move about as they would or as they should. You go to Fatoto, you have rickety vehicles there. You go to this place in Sarangai, all these outstations, and these are the areas where criminals, criminals really have the opportunity to enter the country from outside. Yet, these stations are ill-equipped. Even proper communications facilities are not available to them. They have to be dependent on their cell phones, and the government does not provide them the units. As they provide, maybe permanent secretaries, free telephone calls. This is not provided to the police. The modern methods of crime detection and crime prevention are not put in place in the country. And of course, this would be done if our police really are trained, properly trained, and that their promotions and everything being dependent on how much they perform, on how well they acquit themselves in the discharge of their duties. They may be willing to really do the job, but they're hampered, they're handicapped. And the government will really take the necessary measure to ensure that the Gambia police force is properly resourced. They cannot just depend on gifts from philanthropists to really make their movement easy.
A UDP government will ensure the security is well equipped and the working conditions will be conducive, unlike the hordes they call a police station, according to Mr. Dawar.
The police and all other security agents in this country, outfits in this country, are well motivated, not only in terms of remuneration, but also in terms of facilities that will make them operate efficiently and effectively in the manner that is expected of them. We'll ensure that things that we take for granted, like uniforms, will be made available to all the security forces. In fact, not just one uniform, but at least 3 sets of uniforms to be available to the police, excluding the ceremonial uniforms, because you don't put on ceremonial uniforms to go on duties, on daily duties. Yeah? And their conditions of work must also be improved. We will improve their conditions of work. The small huts we see around, police station in Marsengalo, those type of things, they do not give the officers, the incentive to work, because the environment itself is not conducive. You don't even know that, you don't even expect that would be a police station. These are things that the UDP government will want to put in place, not only for the police, but also for other security, outfits in the country.
Dabo tied the rise in crime in the country to mass unemployment. He argued skill centers should be built by the government to avoid youth from embarking on irregular migration and a reason to stay in their own country, as well as doing away from crimes.
Incentive of the police officers may not be the cause, or could not be cause, or should not be the cause of the crime. Believe those who are engaged in these terrible activities are people who do not have anything to do, anything useful to do. The youths who are unemployed, they get frustrated. And out of frustration, they resort to drug use and abuse, drug use and drug abuse. And they fantasize. And then next thing they think is maybe break into a store and do away with what they can. Unemployment is really the root cause. We are not making any meaningful plans for those who are returning from Europe, those who have been sent back, because sometimes deportation connotes something ugly, but who have been sent back from Europe. They come and there's nothing that they come to. Well, ultimately, they resort to crimes of violence, which we are now all victims of. So unemployment has to be tackled. Most of the people who go by the irregular route, usually are people with no appreciable level of education. Now, you need to really provide skills and training centers for these people in the various areas of trade.
President Barrow last month addressed the nation on the security situation, but Mr. Dabo termed it late.
We appreciate very much the president's statement coming though late. Maybe it should have happened. Even before the Sanyang incident. It should have happened before the Sanyang incident. But it's never late than never. But there's one thing that we should take our security, which is said that we should take our security seriously. There's not a single Gambian who does not take his security seriously. But the president should realize that we have mandated him. We have given him the authority to take care of our personal security. I expect President Barrow to take care of my personal security, Usain Dabo, as a citizen of this country. And I expect him and his government to take care of the personal security of Mr. Takur, of Mr. Tal, because he has the mandate to do so. And that mandate, he cannot really, that mandate, he cannot really ignore or try to abdicate his responsibility by saying it's a collective responsibility. Of course, it's a collective responsibility, but the primary burden is on you to provide security for all of us, to ensure that we are protected. That is why you had to come out and address the Gambian people on the state of security in the country, because it's your personal responsibility. But that does not mean that we are oblivious to the fact that everyone has to cooperate with the law enforcement agencies. And we, at the United Democratic Party, we are more than willing to be partners with every security outfit in this country. We know that the Gambia has been the bastion of human rights, rule of law, and democracy. That is why we have earned the privilege of hosting the Center for Democracy and as well as the AU Commission on Human Rights. That's why we have been privileged to host it.
Dabo later turned attention to the voter registration exercise as Gambians brace up for presidential election in December.
We know that currently we are engaged in voter registration. And of course, sometimes tempers can flare, on occasions like this. And it is the duty and responsibility of every Gambian to ensure that pre- or post-election violence does not take place in this country, because those could be things that could put in jeopardy the security of this country. We have seen in other parts of Africa where political issues, where issues relating to improper conduct of elections have led to terrible situations. And proper conduct of elections commence with proper registration of voters. So that is why I say that is an aspect of security that one should really not ignore, that the institutions that have been mandated to carry out this exercise should also know that they have a role to play in maintaining stability and security of this country, and maintain that by really doing the right thing and in the right way. No one suggests that the Independent Electoral Commission should be listening or doing what any stakeholder thinks should be done. No one is saying that. But then I'm suggesting as a major stakeholder that, the security of our country, and indeed any country, also depends on how you hold your elections. And a proper election starts with proper registration. We just want to appeal to the IEC that what happened was used to happen in the Jammeh's time. Agents were allowed to sit at the registration centers, and they were allowed to really record those people who presented themselves for registration. And the agents were allowed to do so, and they could take the record and then go and report that XYZ is not qualified. I understand that they have been denied that. If Jammeh, with all his dictatorial tendencies, with all his efforts to scuttle free and fair elections, can allow that in his time, I don't know why in New Gambia, where we want a transparent elections, why it should not happen. After all, this will ensure the credibility of the IEC itself. Look, our system is transparent. UDP agent, you are free to take the name of Usainu Dabo. If you think he's not qualified, take the names. If you think he's not qualified, then you can go to a revising court. But how can you go to a revising court if you do not have access to the particulars of the individual who is registering? I think really we want to appeal to the IEC that in the interest of transparency, in the interest of your own integrity, let the agents take down the names, let them have access to the records. They can take down the names. And this was happening in Yahya Jammeh's time, it was happening in Sadauda's time. Why should it not happen now? I think really we should rethink. We should really rethink this. Taking a last number and a first number, yes, that used to happen in Jammeh's time. That used to happen in Jawara's time. But between the first and the last number, they also record those figures and the names between the first and last number. They do record them, and I think they should be allowed to. They should be allowed to continue.
Dabo also used the news conference to frown at mob justice, saying criminals have a right to their safety just as citizens have a right to their safety. For TFN News Review, I am Mati Senghor. Surrounded.